So let's dive into a story that starts way, way before our own. A story that's not really about where humanity came from, but about where the rebellion that infects us came from. And this isn't just some ancient history lesson. Think of it more like a diagnosis. A diagnosis for a condition that wasn't born on our world, but was brought here.
This single idea, this is the key to everything we're about to unpack. It flips our whole understanding of sin right on its head. It suggests that what we so often just shrug off as human nature is actually something alien, a spiritual virus that literally crossed worlds to get here.
All right, so to really understand this virus, we have to go back to the source. And the source isn't a garden here on Earth. No, it's a war. A war that took place in the absolute perfection of heaven, long before time as we know it even got started.
Now here's what's so fascinating about this. The very first rebel. He wasn't some kind of monster hiding in the shadows. He was Lucifer, the light bearer. The book of Ezekiel describes him as the absolute pinnacle of creation, a being of just breathtaking beauty, incredible wisdom, and glowing with light, living right there in the presence of God.
But right in the heart of this perfect being, a single thought took root, a question that was just dripping with pride. He looked at the throne of God and he thought to himself, why only him? Why not me? It wasn't some big, loud declaration. It was a whisper, deep inside his own heart. And that whisper was the very first seed of all treason, the beginning of all rebellion in the entire universe.
And you know how it goes. That seed didn't just stay a seed. It grew. It went from being just a prideful thought to full-blown open disobedience. A war literally erupted in heaven, and the light-bearer became the adversary. And for that treason, he was cast out, exiled from the very presence of the one he refused to worship.
Okay, so this huge cosmic event happens. But what were the consequences for our story? Where did this fallen rebel even end up? And what in the world did that mean for the planet that was about to be formed?
We all know this famous line, right? It's the opening of the Bible. We usually read it and think it's this poetic description of an empty, uncreated world. But what if it's not poetry? What if it's describing the direct aftermath of a cosmic disaster?
So, here's the crucial point. The chaos, the formlessness, that void, the darkness, that wasn't the starting point of creation. It was the result of a judgment. It was the wreckage left behind by Lucifer's fall. The earth, in that moment, had become his prison yard.
Then, right into the middle of this cosmic crime scene, God does something just astonishing. He creates humanity, Adam and Eve, and he places them on the very same planet that was now the domain of this fallen rebel. And this wasn't some kind of mistake. Oh no, it was a direct, strategic countermove.
And he didn't just place humanity there to exist. He gave them the very authority that Lucifer had just thrown away. He commanded them to govern where the rebel had failed, to bring light where darkness was now ruling, and to bring love where pride had taken over. But the rebel, who was now the deceiver, he wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. He couldn't force his way back into heaven, but he saw a new way to keep his war against God going. He figured out a way to export his rebellion right into God's brand new creation. And the process was just tragically simple. First, the serpent whispers the exact same lie he told himself. You will be like God. Second, that lie is believed. Third, in that single moment of belief and disobedience, treason crosses over from the spiritual realm into the human realm. And finally, that virus of rebellion becomes an inherited trait, passed down through all of humanity. We have got to understand this. Adam and Eve did not invent sin. They were the first to be infected by it. We are not the originators of pride and rebellion, we're the inheritors of it. It's a foreign contagion through and through. So, now you've got this catastrophic outbreak on your hands, this cross-contamination of worlds. How did heaven respond? What was God's official diagnosis of the problem? If you look closely at that conversation in Genesis 3, it's amazing. God doesn't stop at Adam's finger-pointing. He doesn't stop at Eve's explanation. He traces the chain of command, so to speak, all the way back to the true origin. He bypasses the victims of the virus and goes right to the carrier, the serpent, saying, because you have done this. He knew exactly where the infection came from. And in that moment, God's immediate response wasn't to just condemn humanity forever, it was containment. He covered their shame, he moved them out of the garden to protect them, and, most importantly, he made a promise of a redeemer who would one day come and crush the head of the very serpent who started this whole mess. Okay, so this ancient drama, it isn't just some dusty story. Let's see how it perfectly frames the fundamental choice that every single one of us has to make in our own lives, right now, today.
You know, maybe the greatest deception that we all face today is just quietly accepting that selfishness and pride and rebellion, well, that's just who we are. It's just human nature. But according to this story, that is a flat-out lie. It's not human nature, it is Lucifer's nature wearing a human face.
But here is the profound, world-changing good news. The virus that was imported can be exported. Through the cross, Jesus Christ didn't just offer forgiveness for our sins. He provided a way to literally exile the very nature of rebellion from our hearts and restore us to our original design and our original authority.
So the choice is laid out right in front of us. It's crystal clear. On one side, you've got Lucifer's inheritance, a nature of pride, rebellion, and that constant need to be our own God. And on the other side, you've got heaven's original design for us, a nature built on loyalty, love, and a joyful obedience to our Creator.
Ultimately, the war that began up there in heaven now finds its final battlefield right inside the human heart. And the question this ancient story leaves with every single one of us is a deeply personal one. You were created in God's image, but you inherited a rebel's nature. So today, right now, whose nature will you choose to wear?